March the 3rd, 2003, and we're in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Burklund, Vernon and Maxine. They live in Oldsburg, Kansas. And Vernon is 80 years old this year, are you?
I was 80 last May.
80 last May, I see. And I'm Dean Schoengert, and I'll be interviewing today, and I'm coordinator of the Oral History Project in Potawatomi County. Well, were you married before you went into the service?
Yes.
Vernon?
Yeah.
You were? Were you living here at Oldsburg or in the county here?
No, we were living in Wichita.
Oh.
He was working at Boeing in
Already?
Wichita, and I lived there. That's where we met.
I see.
So he went to the service, I went with him. They sent him to Hutchinson.
How long was we in Hutchinson?
Oh,
Have any idea?
Maybe over a year and a half maybe, I'm not sure. I didn't keep track of all that.
You enlisted?
Miss Erickson and I and the other kid that's deceased went to Kansas City and took a physical, and I don't know, I guess we enlisted, did we? We enlisted, took a physical down in Kansas City and then enlisted. Then they sent us to Hutchinson for basic, or what I want to say.
Basic training?
Yeah.
But that you were already in the Navy at that time?
Yeah, yeah. Had enlisted and they sent us there. Instead of going to, it used to be up in Minnesota or someplace, wasn't it? They sent them, but we got sent to Hutch. That's where
What was basic like?
Like all basic, it was.
Marching and?
Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah.
And they had us out on, I remember that, the naval, or the city park, wasn't it?
No, it was the fairgrounds.
Fairground.
Oh, yes.
That's where we drilled out there.
They set up a base at the fairgrounds and had barracks there for the guys to live in. That's where he spent that time. They finally did build a station outside of town.
Out west of town, they built a naval air station out there. And but I wasn't there very long.
No, he was mostly at the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Because it took a while for him to get that air base built.
So I was there before they ever got that and open.
You applied for the Navy?
Yes.
Was a lot of goods rationed in those days, in 1942 and 3?
I guess there was, wasn't there?
I don't know, I didn't eat there.
What do you mean by rations?
Just before you got into the service, could you buy all the gasoline you wanted?
No, I don't think so, did I?
Well, until the war started.
Yeah, until the war started, yeah. Then that went into that.
Then they put those rations out. We had the books with the little stamps and bought what we could with that.
When I was in the Navy out in Hutch, some of the guys had more stamps than they needed. They'd pass them around. So nobody was hurt much, I mean, they had about all they needed.
Were you living, Maxine, were you living in Navy quarters or?
No, I had to live off base.
She lived in an apartment in Hutchinson, in town. And I was supposed to, but I went in and stayed there most of the time at night.
We had our first child while we were there.
You did? That didn't make it easy then, did it?
Not too much, especially trying to travel around later. He was sent to St. Louis then after a year and a half or so. And he was in St. Louis then until the war was over. They were just getting ready to send him to California to ship out when the war ended.
Well, they sent me there.
Huh?
They sent me out to
Yes.
California.
Yeah, I said you went out to
I
California.
was sitting out there waiting on getting sent overseas. Well, then the war was over, and they come up with a, what do you call it, point system.
Yes.
And I was married and had a kid, and I won more than they could send. They couldn't send me.
Oh.
I was 1 point high.
1 point over, huh?
Yeah, I never will forget that.
Yeah, but they were bringing the boys home by then anyway.
They were starting to bring them home anyway. It'd been a waste of time to send me. You know, at that time the war was over.
Yeah. Yeah, so what was your skill in the Navy? Is it St. Louis you spent most of your time? Or?
Yeah, aircraft, working on aircraft, learning how to take care of aircraft.
Well, you were an airplane mechanic.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He also played baseball.
Yeah, I played a lot of baseball. I was on the different, where I was stationed. Yeah, I was on their regular team, you know, that went out and played. I played baseball even in the main place in St. Louis. Where
Did you?
At that time, it was the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yes.
We played on that when they weren't there, of course. So every place I was in sports too.
So we're talking about over a year at St. Louis?
Probably.
I'd say a little over, probably. I don't remember now.
Was there one special airplane that you worked on?
No, they had several. And that was done at the airport in St. Louis. I mean, the Navy had a deal on the hill overlooking the airport. And so we worked in conjunction with the airport.
What were the airplanes you worked on?
I can't remember exactly.
The single engine? Or?
Yeah, single engine altogether I was on.
Oh, a fighter plane, a Navy.
Yeah.
Corsair,
yeah,
were they?
Yeah, Corsair. I did fly on twin engine as a mechanic, you know, or a crew chief. I flew on them, so that's the main thing I did.
Well, tell them how you had to fly on them so you keep them up. Good.
Yeah.
How you had to fly with
Yeah,
the pilot.
I had to fly some with the pilot as his co-pilot, so that I knew how to fly the plane. So then that got me interested. And later on, I went and took lessons and got my own private license.
Were these pilots mainly in training there? Or?
Most of it, yeah.
And you were doing routine maintenance on the motors or upkeep, or were you doing overhaul?
Yeah, we didn't do much overhaul, mostly upkeep, you know. Kind of like you take a car to get it serviced. It's one thing or another. We done that part of the planes there.
What were you doing, Maxine?
I was working at another Cessna plant in Hutchinson there, and a little tin and dime store at first. Then I went to Cessna until we left there.
What was your job at Cessna?
That was in the paint department. Would seal off the airplanes with paper so they could paint them, and then we would sand them down between paint jobs. That's what I did.
Was that a pretty dirty job, or?
Yes, it was. Very dirty. When you were when you were sanding, it was very dirty. Yeah.
You sand with a machine or
Sandpaper.
just by hand?
Sandpaper,
They didn't have all that modern stuff
My
nowadays.
goodness.
Yeah.
So how many of you would be sanding on one plane?
Oh, maybe 2 or 3 at a time.
Really?
They sometimes they would have the rudders or the wings and they call them the ailerons, or
Yeah.
so we would be sanding on those. They weren't always on the plane. Sometimes we
Oh.
had the body of the plane. We would cover that up, cover up the windows and so on.
Most of the workers with you were women, or?
Yeah, most of them. Like Rosie the Riveter. I think a good deal of them were women in that plant.
But you
I
had,
had a man crew chief. Yeah.
but you had a child at that time.
Yeah. After I got pregnant, I quit.
Oh.
It was too hot in that because they had to have it hot to paint. So I quit then.
That's interesting that both of you were in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Always thought the Navy had the best flying anyway. I guess I naturally would feel that way.
Then when he come home, he started taking flying lessons and became a pilot.
Oh.
He loved to fly.
Yeah, I got to fly enough, you know, that I got where I wanted to too. But wasn't connected with the service when I did. I'd done this on my own.
Did you ever fly commercially, or
No, just private.
you have your own plane, or?
No, I belonged to a flying club. You paid so much, you know, and it was a lot cheaper than I couldn't afford a plane.
What was your job at which you made a living after?
Well,
the
I
service?
ended up here in the service station business.
Oh.
The one down on the highway, it's closed up now. The guy run it went bankrupt and quit. So it's just sitting there. But I was there, how many years?
43.
43. And then he couldn't make it over 2 or 3 until he went bankrupt.
But you finally were headed overseas at the end of your service.
Yeah.
You got as far as California, is that what?
Yeah, I got San Diego.
Yeah.
I wasn't there very long, was I?
3 months.
3 months or so. Then, of course, when the war come to an end, so they sent me back.
That was the European war ended, or Japanese also?
Japanese
yeah,
too.
Japanese. Yeah.
And then you had just enough points to...
Yeah, 1 point. No. They couldn't send me overseas. But if it lasted a little longer, that's where I was headed. I was very fortunate I never got sent over in the first place, but most of them, I happened to be at the right place at the right time, so I never got sent over till then finally it come due that I should be sent. I figured I'd get sent quicker, but I didn't. It just, everything happened to fall in line for me.
Did you apply to be a mechanic, or they just assigned you to that? Did they give you training for that?
Well, I guess it's on the job training like thing, you know.
You have your own tools, or did they give you a...
They had their tools. I used their tools. I enjoyed that part really. Sometimes it's like any job that got boring, you know, but I was proud of being in the Air Force, naval.
Were you? Well, that experience was a good experience for you.
Yeah, really was. Yeah. Like they say, that's kind of part of growing up. Because I was pretty young at that time, you know.
How old would you have been when you went in 42? You're 20 years old.
20.
Yeah.
20 years old. So you've been out of high school for 3 years maybe or so.
Not that long, surely.
Not just two, wasn't it?
2 years?
Yeah, he went to Wichita after he got out of the school and worked at Boeing. What did you do at Boeing? You were what, you riveted something?
Yeah, I was in assembly out in the aircraft factory. And I was in mostly sheet metal, you know, riveter and one thing and another, assembler. Putting ailerons on, the wings on, stuff like that.
Yeah, no wonder the Navy put you in aircraft maintenance.
Yeah.
Were you working at the same plant, Maxine?
No, I was at Cessna. No, when he was in Boeing, I wasn't working there.
Oh.
No. I went to work at Cessna when we went to Hutchinson after he was in the service.
Are you from here also?
No, I'm from Wichita.
You're from Wichita. You married this young man from Oldsburg.
Sure did.
You probably didn't know where Oldsburg was, did you?
Not until he brought me here, I didn't.
Her sister's right next door now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she come out to visit us and ended up staying and marrying this guy.
Which is his cousin.
Yeah,
Oh.
which is my cousin. And him and I are cousins, and now, so we're pretty well.
Gets better and better.
Yeah.
Are you Swedish?
Oh, I guess so. I can't talk much of it anymore. I used to could say a few words, but I never did get involved in.
When was the last time you flown in an airplane? Or that
Well, we
you
went
flew
to
an
Texas
airplane?
in a commercial. Is that what you mean, a commercial airplane?
Well, that, and then the last time you
Well,
flew an airplane.
He flew. He doesn't do that anymore.
We had daughter in Texas, and we flew back and forth down to visit her.
Did you?
And that's the main traveling that way I did. Otherwise, it was just local stuff, mostly.
Have any scary experiences flying?
Yeah, one time, run into a storm. I was happy to get out of it. There was times I couldn't even see the propellers out there. It was that bad.
Well, tell the rest of it.
Like landing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I landed out on a pasture out there to get down out of it. And I remember there was water holes and the water just flew when I hit. Then I stayed there overnight.
Farmer come running out.
He come thinking I cracked up there, you know, so he come up and got me and took me home. He said, I'll just keep you here tonight. So I stayed with him that night. And it cleared up overnight. And I said, well, now I can take off again. Well, I'll take you back up there. And I was going to pay him. No. He wouldn't take a cent. He said, I enjoyed having you. Like rural people are, real friendly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He was on his way up to Minnesota that time, wasn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah,
remember.
you had two people with you. You were going up to Minnesota.
Yeah. So,
Dry enough to take off the next day?
yeah, well, it wasn't really, but we did.
Well, when you were in St. Louis there, did you have any hard times or accidents that were tragic, or
No.
everything went pretty smoothly for
Yeah.
you?
No, I was there. I was mostly in maintenance,
Mhm.
aircraft maintenance mostly. I didn't do too much flying out of St. Louis.
Well, thank you very much for your
Yeah.
story. Every veteran has a different story to tell. And appreciate your time this morning.
Well, I hope we give you some information.
I did not realize Navy had that much flying
Oh yeah.
in Kansas and St. Louis. I thought they were
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
on the coast. Okay.